In the Season 2 premiere of Soso no Frieren, Stark is asked 3 selfish questions by 3 selfless people. The questions are very distinct from each other. Some at first don't even sound like questions. But if you listen closely, they actually ask the same thing.
前衛が圧倒的に不足している。
私は怖くてたまらない。
どうしてそんなに？
私はシュタルクに命を預けているからね。
They are all asking, can you be my vanguard? A word with a simple meaning. In military terms, it describes the troops moving at the head of an army, but more generally, it means the forefront of an action or movement. In other words, a person who stands in front of you. Right now, Wirbel, Frieren, and Fern would all prefer that person to be Stark, but the interesting part is that for most of their lives, it wasn't Stark who stood there. Each of these figures tell us about the lives they've led up to this point, the expectations they've built up were Stark as a result, and finally how that influences the answer Stark gives at the very end of the episode. Wirbel's perspective seems like the easiest to start with. He's the captain of the Northern Magic Corps, mercenaries who specialize in fighting demons. Wirbel was born into war. As his party member Ares says,
あいつが使うのは品性のまるでない勝つための卑怯な魔法。
in war, you don't get to be fancy. Any wasted second could result in a delay or a completely failed objective. As the captain, Wirbel is forced to think of war as a numbers game, so naturally he views Stark more as an asset. He knows the boy is incredibly powerful and could probably single-handedly turn the tides of a battle. Of course, asking Stark to drop his party to join his war sounds selfish, especially for the viewers, but in reality, it might be the most selfless request out of the 3.
私はね、その人が得意とする魔法は人生や人間性に大きく関わっていると思っている。相手の動きを封じるこの魔法はまるで殺すまでの猶予を欲しがってるみたいだ。
Wirbel is right. Why would a war captain learn a restraining technique? Wirbel's flashback gives us the answer, and it's one of those rare moments where the show reminds us this world is not all sunshine and rainbows. War is cruel. Women and children are sent to the front lines knowing they aren't fit for it. Wirbel is used to killing, yes, but he never wants to kill. He also doesn't know Stark is the main character of a story. To him, Stark is just a wanderer who is looking for purpose. So when Wirbel asks Stark, can he be my vanguard? What he truly means is, with you, there will be no more unnecessary deaths. It's a noble offer and the definition of heroism. And that's exactly why Stark cannot accept it. When a person grows up in a family with high expectations but then loses that family before ever being able to meet them, something interesting happens. Stark is considered a failure by his father, and the only reason he survives his village's massacre is because he runs from it. He blames himself and accepts the expectations as an unpaid debt. This debt can never be paid, but there's nobody to tell him that, so he feels it's necessary to take on any role he's given, no matter how unreasonable it is. The village's savior who grew up a coward, the noble lord's son who grew up a commoner. Roles that could never fit Stark. Then, Wirbel's offer is perfect. A role of a soldier, one that can earn glory and medals that his father would be proud of. But Stark is tired of roles.
大丈夫だ。深呼吸しろ。ここはお前の故郷の村じゃない。
笑うことはねえだろ。
アイゼンと同じだ。
師匠と。そうか。
His village is not who he is, and his fear was never a weakness. It only takes a few people to help someone break the pattern, and since Stark began traveling with Frieren, the people he meets change him. He's allowed himself to accept his past and find his own ambition. This means he can never fulfill the role Wirbel sees in him. Stark isn't someone who can follow commands without hesitation. Fear is what brought him here. But this time, he's not the only one scared. Fern is never like this. She's calm even if her life is in danger. She pouts when she gets annoyed or gets startled when she's surprised. Fern rarely shows fear, but this look of defeat is one we haven't seen ever since that day. Fern is an orphan. She lost everything to war at a very young age, which left her in a state a lot of us could never imagine being in. This deeply affects her attitude towards her surroundings throughout her entire life. The thing about a person who's left with nothing is that they tend to cherish everything. We can see it most clearly in the very first episode of Season 2, where we're shown Fern thoroughly cleaning the different accessories she was gifted on her journey. This show of gratitude, manifested through making sure everything is maintained in top condition, is also extended to the people she cares about. Fern will be happy and encourage Frieren if she wakes up earlier than usual, or will get mad at Stark if he drinks juice late at night. The need for stability and responsibility are important traits Fern needed to even get to the point she is at now, and that molded her personality into the stern caretaker we have been so used to throughout the story. But there's one thing someone like Fern will never tell you. and that is that they would really want someone to take care of them too. Hyter meets Fern at her lowest point. He's not exactly the caring type at first glance, especially with a bottle of booze in his right hand. He's a corrupt priest, but he saves Fern anyways, not because he's a saint, but because that's what Himmel the hero would have done. Fern is taught the basics of life, but she also learns that a person is more than their flaws. By the time Frieren visits Hyder, he already quit alcohol. Decades of drinking, yet he quits in the last few years because he finds someone he really cares for. It really does take just one person, doesn't it? Fern meets Stark at his lowest point. She's not exactly the warrior type at first glance, especially with him shaking in fear constantly. He's a coward that was about to abandon his village right then and there. But Fern sees that Stark's heart is in the right place. His bravery might be fake, but his desire to protect the people he cares about is real. She watches Stark gradually overcome his insecurities and grow into the kind and dependable Stark that we are following. Their relationship has progressed to a point where the story makes it very clear that Stark means much more to her now than ever before. That day, when they fall into a cave filled with magic nullifying crystals, Fern is reminded how fragile she is. She chose to master magic for Hyter. It's her only proof that she can support herself, so when she's stripped of it, Fern is terrified of reliving the same feeling she did when she was a child standing on that cliff. A feeling of total powerlessness. That's why that evening when Fern reluctantly approached Stark, she wanted to ask him if he still wanted to be the vanguard of their party. Except, what she really means to ask is if Stark can stay and be there for her. And before she even begins to say it, Stark is already prepared to answer. He knows what she wants to ask him. After a certain elf fell asleep in the middle of a dangerous cave, it's been on his mind constantly. Unlike Fern, Frieren was never worried about her safety, despite also being completely powerless. But it wasn't out of arrogance. Frieren has experience traveling with someone of Stark's caliber. Aizen is humanity's strongest warrior. The hero party could trust him with their life, but not just because he's strong. Aizen is also a coward. He also abandoned his village and fled. And since then, he also resolved himself to keep others around him safe. Parties don't function otherwise. But Frieren does something neither Wirbel nor Fern does. Frieren is the first to bring up whether Stark is comfortable in the party. And when he's getting actively persuaded to join another cause, she's also completely content. But it's not because she doesn't need Stark. Frieren went to great lengths to recruit Stark, and there's no guarantee that she'd ever find someone as capable, and even if she did, whether they would be compatible with each other. So Frieren definitely needs him. But she needs Stark to make the decision himself. A warrior bound by duty can break, a guardian bound by guilt can resent, but a coward who chooses to stand his ground, that is the only vanguard who Frieren can consider a worthy party member. And so she lets him choose. Stark chooses to stay, but not just to protect them. He was asked 3 selfish questions, so he realized he has a selfish answer. And it's quite an oxymoron, isn't it? He's the one who fled his village to save his life, but the one who possesses enough strength to cut down any foe in front of him. The one who endures direct attacks from the most dangerous monsters in history. The one whose hands never stop shaking, but the one who chooses to protect despite being the most scared. He's a coward, but a warrior. A warrior, but a guardian. He's a paradox who stands at the front of Frieren's party.
それじゃあ行こうか。
Vanguard. Human. Stark the Cowardly.